Okay.
Welcome, Dan. I wanted to go ahead and give you the opportunity, as always, to give us an update on the project and how everything's been going this week.
Well, it's been our first week with a live network. I'd say overall it's been a wild success.
I would agree. Is there any topic of special interest for you this week?
Primary topic I wanted to address was recommended delegated proof of stake.
Please do.
It seems like there's been a lot of confusion. The biggest challenge we're facing right now is that the network is only as secure as the turnout. You're only protected against the 51% attack of participating shares. And users seem to not know who to vote for, nor have time to select 101. I'll tell you, it's a difficult task to pick 101 different people. So we need a way to make that easier for people in order to get voter turnout to increase. If we have low voter turnout, then say only 25% of the people are actively voting, and there's only 75% agreement among those, then that means the highest approval someone has is 20% or something. Then anyone who can come along with a large percent can take over the DAC. So right now, BitShares X could be taken over by anyone with 10%. And that's because there are not enough people with shares online voting. And if they are online voting, they might not be voting for the full slate, full 101 people.
Sure. So how does RDPOS deal with this?
Basic idea is that regardless of what you do, most people are going to ask their friends, family, or trusted sources online who they should be supporting. And if you can just say, hey, I'd like to just vote however you vote, or take your friendly neighborhood nerd and ask them who they want to vote for. And you just basically pick some friends, family, maybe a couple people you trust from the internet, say Adam B. Levine or other big names, and just follow their recommendation. And when you follow someone's recommendation, what you do is you're combining everyone, all the inputs from everyone who you trust into building your slate. And then you vote according to who everyone you trust, how they vote. Of course, you're not giving them the power to vote for you. You're just taking their recommendation, applying it, and then voting accordingly. So it's an easy way for users to vote and to accumulate and aggregate recommendations from multiple trusted sources.
So would this slate be essentially something similar to the transparent forging and how in NXT where you actually relegate the responsibility of voting to somebody else, or is it something where a group of trusted individuals comes up with a list and then provides you with essentially a link that you click on and it automatically votes for their trusted?
It's neither.
Oh, well, could you explain it a little bit further then?
Yeah. So say I have 10 people that I have investigated and I give them a thumbs up on my account. And I can publish, hey, these are the 10 guys I trust. And you've got 10 people that you trust and you've given them the thumbs up. And then someone else says 10 people. And someone else can come along and say, well, I don't know how to evaluate the delegates, but I trust Bytemaster and Fuzznuts and whoever else. I'm going to give them all a thumbs up. And then whenever I vote, I'm going to combine everything Bytemaster said with everything Fuzznuts said and everything else anyone else I trust said to build the set of people I'm going to vote for. So it's just a way of combining recommendations automatically with the same user interface you see today, except now instead of only being able to upvote delegates, you're basically giving your approval to anyone who you trust to make judgments on who delegates are. And they don't vote for you like Next with transparent forging. They're not building one slate that you vote for. You are building a unique slate for yourself that's the combination of all the people you trust and their opinion.
How do you combine it? Like if you voted for two people and they both have a completely separate slate of 101 delegates each with no overlap, how do you, what's the tiebreaker? How do you determine your 101?
If there's a tiebreaker and if they're completely overlapping, it's randomized.
So you just randomly vote for people if there's a tie?
Out of those 200, they're all equally weighted, so you have no way of prioritizing them. Sure. Ideally, there should be some overlap.
Sure. I mean, my opinion is that you're thinking of the problem wrong. This is not the reason that people aren't voting. And I mean, obviously we've had a disagreement on the forum about that, but I think people just haven't brought their coins online, and they're not familiar with voting. I think once it becomes very familiar to people, I mean, people still have their money in cold wallets, and they haven't even imported their private keys for security reasons. It's just not a hyper priority.
I think you're misunderstanding my perspective. I know that that's a reason why a lot of people aren't voting right now, but having been someone responsible for voting and approving delegates on a regular basis, I can tell you it's extremely difficult. I know people that have their money online who don't know how to evaluate it. I constantly have people asking me for recommendations. It is too difficult, and some people might pick one or two people to vote for, but that means that the majority of their stake is not being used to vote for anyone. So that's going to be a challenge going forward, and we need a way of saying, hey, who should I vote for? And whether you like it or not, people are going to make recommendations to other people, and people are going to vote according to the recommendations of their friends and family. The only thing we are doing is making it easy for the user to aggregate the recommendations of their friends and family.
Maybe it should be an optional tool. I think it really hurts the whole voting process in a pretty serious way. I think there's a big difference between making recommendations and encouraging via the client an automatic voting and encouraging blind voting. It's two separate things. I mean, I think if you got on the forum and you posted something about here's who I'm voting for, and here's why, and here's how I make a decision, that's way, way, way more helpful for people than putting together a list and encouraging people to not even make any evaluation or even think. It's a totally different thing. And we should also be encouraging people to, if there's not 101 separate people, encourage people to run multiple clients, multiple delegates. There's nothing wrong with certain people running multiple delegates. It doesn't have to be 101 separate individuals.
I got a comment about how canonizers solve some of those problems if we want.
Sure, please.
Yeah, basically that's the way canonizer's been doing it all along, is you have, just exactly like Bytemaster said, so you have someone like Bytemaster who potentially has a huge tree that could potentially be 90% of the delegates. And you know that 90% of those people, if they've delegated their votes through giant, they delegate to their friends, and their friends delegate to their friends, and their friends delegate to their trusted friends, so you end up with these huge delegated trees to Bytemaster or someone like that. And so the whole organization, the problem is if Bytemaster just make a recommendation and everyone else has to cast their vote, the whole organization has to change a dime in like 5 nanoseconds if there's some competing DAC out there or something like that. And so if everyone is saying yes, whatever Bytemaster says, I'm 110% on board with that. And so if Bytemaster jumps camp, so suddenly there's a huge change in the whole organization. It was going down past X, and as soon as Bytemaster jumped camps to path Y, the whole organization instantly changes, and that comes true instantly. And if Bytemaster screws up, everyone's going to say, whoa, that was a bad decision. I'm going to delegate my vote to someone else. And so you get the power of a hierarchy a powerful hierarchy can act faster than a hierarchy because you know what the whole organization is going to do on an instant change of a dime, and so that's what gives the power to that system to work better than a hierarchy. And you know that everyone's going to be on board with what Bytemaster says, and anyone can, and if Bytemaster screws up, anyone can change their delegates anytime they want, real time, instantly.
Don't you guys see a problem with this idea that the whole network points themselves at Bytemaster, and Bytemaster controls what everybody votes for? Is there anyone who believes in decentralization that has an issue with that?
I don't think people are voting for Bytemaster automatically. They have to ratify everything Bytemaster does. So,
I know, but you're encouraging people to not bother, to just vote for whatever you vote for.
I think that's better than having people out of date voting for. Basically, what you're asking people to do is, I'm trusting someone else to make this decision for me, and that's good enough for me. If they get corrupt, you'll find out about it and change at that point in time. But until you have reason to believe that the people you trust, it's actually more secure in the long run than requiring everyone to analyze everything, in which case they might not realize that somebody can't be trusted anymore.
Well, this brings to mind, sorry for interrupting, this brings to mind something that you actually talked about a little bit on Let's Talk Bitcoin, when Stephanie Murphy asked you about the Congress and things becoming corrupt. And essentially the interesting thing about this type of system is, as I see it, and please let me know if I'm wrong, with Congress, you really have very few options to kick somebody out of office if they are going against the best interests of the collective group who has assigned them these responsibilities. But with this system, it's not based off of 2 years voting, voting on them every 2 years, or voting them out of office, or a long impeachment process. It's simply, we don't trust this anymore. We're not sure if we should trust it or not, but it's gotten to the point where we feel like we need to change, and we can change quickly, as opposed to the current 1.0 system where we're pretty much stuck with it until a long drawn out process has occurred.
Until the next election cycle comes around 4 years later.
Yeah.
It's going to be extreme if this type of voting catches on, and this is how people start thinking. It's really bad news. What you're going to have is a bunch of prominent. If people don't realize the problem with this, what you're going to have is all the prominent people in the community who end up scratching each other's back and adding each other to their slates, and then you're going to have an ingrained slate where almost anybody that you vote for that's a member of the community is going to have the same slate of delegates. And then if there's a problem, it just becomes an oligarchy. It's impossible for a new person to run, because the new person can't directly appeal to shareholders, because shareholders have already tuned out. They're just voting blindly. The new person would have to beg and appeal to this little cabal of BitShares X oligarchs that have all put each other on their slate. It's retarded. It's bad.
I'm going to say that what you're going to have is something entirely different. For the security of the network, you want to have a strong amount of consensus. If the people are all voting and they have very wide opinions, the network gets less and less secure. So you need to have some kind of convergence, and this allows it to happen organically. What's going to happen in that case is, if there is a problem, people stop voting for the people they don't like, the people that are the problem. They don't care what the slates say. They say, all right, I'm going to be against this person. They're negatively impacting my investment. Users care, but for the most part, they want to not have to think about it and say, yeah, it's good. If there is a problem, then they can act and they can correct it. But if there are no problems, why bother?
Yeah, one possibility is, first off, Agent, Agent 86, right? And what's your name, or is it you like going by
Yeah,
Agent
you
86?
can call me Agent 86. My name's Lance, but
Okay, Lance, cool, thanks. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, and it's great that you're concerned. And everything you talk about is definitely critically important. And everything that you talk about is what's happening today in all systems. And that's exactly what we have today. And there's some miscommunication. We don't fully understand what you are saying. And there's several things that I feel like you don't understand about why I think this way works. But could we start up an email conversation, and I have a conversation, and because I think it would be it'd be a waste of time to do it here, but would you mind taking this offline, and we could have it and see if we can achieve some consent? Because I think if you understood some of what I believe and vice versa, we could achieve some significant consensus on how this would work and how this gets how what Bytemaster is proposing gets around
sure.
the problems
If there's, I mean, Bytemaster said this was the topic he wanted to talk about, so that's why I'm talking about it right now. I think it's an important topic. But if you want to have the conversation on the forum, to the extent that I have time, I will have the conversation on the forum. Bytemaster's job should be to educate people about why he's voting for the people he's voting for, not to encourage people to do whatever he says just because. If you want to make voting easy, you should tell people why you're voting for people who you're voting for, and let that conversation take place. That's the responsible thing to do for shareholders. And I am not going to be voting for anybody who puts together an automated slate, and I will be campaigning against people who put together an automated slate and encouraging shareholders to stick up for themselves.
Okay. Real quick. Is anybody against us not talking about this? Because this is, in my mind, this is integral. I mean, this, and it's extremely complex in a lot of ways. And this is going to be, like you said, Agent 86, from the very beginning when you've come on and started talking about this. This is the essence of what we're trying to do, right? I mean, this entire system can be absolutely wonderful, but if the voting infrastructure is set up in such a way that it creates a new technocracy, that's not what we want, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So we should be able to find a consensus around what are the best approaches, right?
Well, suppose I posted a list with, here's a brief reason of why I'm voting for my 101 guys. And anytime I make a change to who I'm voting for, I update the list. As a user, you'd say, oh, I support all these reasons. I want to vote for them all. Or I agree with all but one, so I want to vote for this with the exception of this one. That gives the user, it's a lot easier for them to do that than to have to click 101 different things. So I can appreciate what you're saying, but what I'm really doing is not saying I'm going to follow this one person. No, I'm going to follow 5 or 6 different people that I trust and combine their recommendations to form my own personal recommendation. So it's basically mini voting prior to me actually doing my approval voting. I basically sample my friends and family, say, okay, this is who my friends and family approve of, and they've looked into it. I've looked into a couple of my own, so I've approved a couple of my own. There's several I don't like, and so I'm I don't care if someone recommends them. I'm voting again. I'm not going to vote for them. And so I've tweaked it so that I can express my intent as clearly as possible, and it's really easy for me to change. I think you're going to get a lot more discussion about who to vote for if users feel like, hey, by the way, anyone can post a recommendation, not just the delegates. And if that was a point of confusion, I want to clarify that right now.
So Agent could essentially go against you and your delegate slate and say, this is why I'm going against Bytemaster's delegate slate. Vote for the delegate slate that I've put together. I've done the research. Here's my reasons. Here are the links to the reasons, to the proof of my reasons, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and then as more Agents finds a friend or two, says, yes, Agent, you're right, and Agent needs to build consensus, and we need to measure that consensus as it progresses, and it will show that the consensus is growing faster on this issue than anything else in the past, and that gives Agent 86 the ability to override the bleeding sheep that are going down the right path in a lot faster, more efficient way.
Or suppose something as simple as this. Agent and I agree on 75% of the things, and we disagree on 25%. Someone can say, well, I'm going to follow Agent and Bytemaster, and therefore whenever I vote, it's only going to be the ones that Agent and Bytemaster agree on. And the others are going to be lower priority. And now my vote is actually being more meaningful, even though I haven't had a chance to do anything other than say, hey, I've looked into Bytemaster and I know that he has the best interest of this network in his mind. I believe Agent 86 is the same. They'll fight it out, and I'm just going to throw my weight behind whoever they can agree on. And that's what you want a lot of people to do. Point is, if you don't make it easy for people to do this, people are going to create tools online that are going to do this. Web wallets, third-party wallets are going to come online that allow people to do this. You can't stop it from happening. The best you can do is to make it as robust and easy to use by default as possible, and to encourage and educate people. This is people's money we're talking about. They've got financial interest in doing it right. So give them tools that allow them to express and manage their influence in ways that is easy for them to do. If you make it really hard, then the mental cost is going to be too high for them to actually contribute meaningful information to the system.
I think you guys lose track of the broad analogy here. The broad analogy of BitShares is that these are, I can say it, maybe Bytemaster can't say it, but it's shares of a company, okay? To say that people are too lazy to make a few clicks and we have to save them the time of making individual selections is ridiculous. There's no reason for you to be if you're going to be an investor and you're going to own stock, it's your job to do your due diligence. Anybody who owns BitShares X should have spent enough time researching this before they bought, shares of a magic company on the internet. Should have spent enough time researching this before they bought it, that they can spend 2 seconds making a couple clicks of a mouse. It doesn't make any sense.
I can tell you an analogy.
You're making a difference between a casual user and a serious shareholder. You can be a casual user and put dollars into the bank of BitShares X. You can put without being a shareholder. You can own BitUSD that you can transfer anywhere in the world without being a shareholder, without worrying about voting. If you don't have a significant stake, you don't need to worry about voting. You can play BitShares Lotto without being a significant shareholder. You can own a .p2p domain without being a significant shareholder. If you're going to be a shareholder, do the work. And if you're gonna help people make a vote, Bytemaster, your job is to tell them why. Your job is to educate the other shareholders. Your job is not to convince people to be lazy and vote blind. It's really not helpful.
But can I say that, Agent? What you say is completely right, though. What also has to be said is that if a shareholder doesn't vote for all 101 delegates, and just votes for 5 or 2 he knows and trusts, and did the research on, his vote is worth close to nothing.
That's not entirely true. And second of all, we should be encouraging people.
Why is it not true?
Because we should be encouraging people to have multiple delegates. People who are trusted members of the community can have multiple delegates. Until there's enough information out there and there's enough involved shareholders, it is not a problem for Alt or Emsky or whatever to be running multiple delegates. And if you trust those guys, you can vote for more than one of their delegates. There's nothing wrong with that.
That is a valid argument, actually.
I would like to.
Sure.
I've just got like 1 minute before I'm going to go, and say that if you're going to use the company analogy, the way I would say it is this. I trust Steve Jobs to appoint the board of directors at Apple. I'm not going to look into all the directors and figure out who should be on there. So even though I would be investing in Apple, I'm investing in one person who I trust to make the judgments. And when it comes time to elect a director or to vote on critical issues, I'm just going to go with whatever Steve Jobs says because I don't have enough information. I don't know enough.
That's because you've never been a significant shareholder of a public company, Bytemaster. That's not how real shareholders act.
Significant shareholders are those that have 1, 2, 3%. But if these systems get as decentralized as we would like, there should be relatively few shareholders of that class. The vast majority should be held by smaller players. And if you don't give the smaller players an effective way to pool their votes and to vote for 101 people with reasonable amount of overlap, the system is going to be less secure.
So in reality, it more looks like what Bytemaster said, because with traditional companies, shareholders do not have much time to do diligence, because they have a little bit of stack in a vast majority of companies to distribute their risk, and
there's no shortcuts in investing. If you're going to invest, it's your job to do due diligence, and anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to pull one over on you.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that front. I agree entirely that if you're going to invest in something, you should know what you're investing in, and you should do due diligence. The only thing I'm pointing out is that despite what you believe people should be doing, what people should be doing and what people actually do are two different things, and that took me a long time to learn, because I, like you, frequently think people should do something this way, and they end up doing the idiotic thing. People should be pointing their hash power at many different mining pools, but they don't. People should be doing all these things, but they don't, because of all kinds of things. All I know is that from real world experience, people are already asking me, and people aren't voting. People who have large stakes right now, stakes that are online, they're just not voting because they don't know how to evaluate it. And if I had a page that had the summary of here's all the people I think I should vote for, they still wouldn't vote because they don't have 20 minutes to go through there and follow it. And if they did it once, they don't have the time or energy to keep up on it. And so they're going to leave their vote stuck on whoever the first 20 were, even though they might not even be online anymore.
That's why you need to educate them. Tell them that this is not rocket science. Vote for a few different people who you think are not that are not colluding, and who can run a computer. It's not rocket science, and you have to educate the shareholders about what they're voting for so they feel comfortable. Don't just tell them, okay, we'll just vote for whoever I'm voting for.
It's not a one-step thing. It's a continual process. Conditions on the ground change on a daily basis. As
long as people are producing blocks, it's not that big a deal. There's really not. You don't need to change your vote every day.
People that are producing blocks can be doing a good job now, and then they can not upgrade in a timely manner. Their time can get off, causing other people to have issues.
Sure, and that's why you need to educate the shareholders of what to look for.
Education is a continual process that's continually changing. And you can't ask all the shareholders to say, I'm going to sit on the forum every day and find out who's not doing what so I can update my vote and make a transaction. They need to know that when I make a transaction, it's going to factor in the information from somebody who is doing that. And if you don't provide that, it's not going to happen.
This brings me to something that you said not too long ago, and I know you have to leave, Bytemaster, but I'm just going to really quick get into this. You said ideally that delegates would have some technical people and they would have marketing people that would essentially kind of combine forces, and the marketing people would essentially be in charge of education of the public, letting the delegates, letting people know what the delegates are doing, and who they're giving their transaction fees to. Look at these metrics for this delegate. Our uptime has been 100%. We've upgraded our systems with no downtime. All these things that are extremely important to the network, right? So we could is there not a way that we could have well, I think that there's a way. It's actually kind of what we're thinking about behind the scenes right now, of creating something where people can actually create their own delegate pages, essentially, and provide an incentive for the marketing team to actually create the content where people can go to their pages and actually see what they're doing, and actually just if they like what the content's saying, what these metrics are proving, and they believe that this delegate team is doing something right, they just go up and click on a link and they've all automatically voted on those delegates.
Something else I would like to say is that, Agent, you said education is very important as the job of Bytemaster to encourage people and encourage the discussion. So maybe there's not so much difference between educating people to make a good decision and recommending something. So if you name it something else than recommended, delegated proof of stake, you can also say discourse-based proof of stake. But in the end, it's going to come down to recommendation by a person you trust. I mean, right?
No, that's not the truth. I think there's a big difference between educating somebody so they can make an informed decision. If someone's confused and they don't know how to make a decision, there's a big difference between telling them how to make that decision and making the decision for them.
Yeah, and Bytemaster's got to get out of here. So thanks, Bytemaster, for coming. And I would like to talk. This is my most important thing that I would like to talk to, as long as Agent 86 is interested in staying in. But I
sure.
don't think we're going to.
I don't know if it's fair for me to monopolize the conversation after Bytemaster's gone, but yeah.
No, I'm glad you are, because this is my most important thing to talk about. But yeah. I just don't think we're going to be able to achieve a full understanding of each other in the small amount of time we have. So I would just like to make sure that once we run out of time, that we can move this offline and do two things. Number one, let's create a topic in the forum where people can start discussing, and we can create a parallel camp in the canonizer where we can get all of Agent 86 ideas concerned. Because everything Agent 86 is talking about, I agree with, and I would like to support him and start canonizing his consensus so that we can make sure that everything he is concerned about. I think there's a ways to address all that with what Bytemaster is talking about. But anyway, thanks everyone for conversing, and if Bytemaster's got to go, I'll stay around for as long as Agent 86 wants to stay around. But let's plan that when we're out of time here, that we continue this discussion so we can make sure we address every concern that Agent 86 has.
I just wanted to say one thing before I go, and that is, just like in the mining and proof of stake world, everything tends toward centralization, and things happen whether you plan for them or not, and it's best to guide things in a way so that they are controlled rather than trying to fight something that's inevitable. All right, well, thanks everyone. This has been a good discussion, and I'll talk to you next week.
And available.
Yeah, I don't have that much, but maybe we can. I think we sufficiently, not sufficiently, but we to an extent discussed recommendation voting or not recommended voting. But so what we see, I think, what we all agree is that there's a problem with participation, and it could be solved by recommended voting, or maybe not. But then if we could also discuss whether we could solve the problem of low participation in voting by switching to delegated voting as opposed to approval voting, which again has another disadvantage, which is that you have more problems with stake that is actually trying to mess with the system, and it's less easy to handle that without approval voting, right? So maybe that we can have a discussion about that as well.
Sounds good. Well,
yeah, I might try to continue to talk about it on the forum. You know, I mean, I have a little bit of time, but I don't want, like I said, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I know Bytemaster has to go.
Oh, well, Agent, it's really no problem, man. I don't really think that Bytemaster's taking it as though like you're bashing it behind. Hey, gotcha. Do you have something to say?
Oh yeah. Well, like I say, I was just I've been listening to all this both sides of it. And I think the problem is that the delegates don't have a concise way of informing the general public all of their exact desires of what they're going to do as far as why they should be a delegate. I mean, we got to know the normal metrics of missing blocks and pay rate, but that's only two default things they have to provide the community without people having to go through and read a ton of things about each one. If there's a way, like delegates have like a check off, as they at the time where they can say, okay, on top of just the normal network matrix you going by, you can also have like, okay, I'm putting this percentage towards a charity, or I'm reinvesting this percentage of my funds, and they can have, say, a bunch of criteria they check off at the time of creation. That way, they can communicate a whole bunch of information quickly and easily to everybody, and then when the person gets ready, then on the other end, when we get ready to vote for, we can just go through and check, okay, here's the criteria that are important to me. Click, 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 and then, like I say, just like in the RDPS, we could automatically just match our choices with their choices, and that can kind of weed out a whole bunch of information without everybody having to do like a ton of research on every single thing delegate do. They just put out there, this is what I'm interested in. Find me delegates that match my criteria, and these would be the general pool of the ones I vote for. And then, of course, you still have the other ones where you vote individually and so forth. That way, you get it. That way, delegates get a ton of information out, and the other person doesn't do a lot of individual research.
That seems like
but it doesn't have to do as much.
Seems like a very elegant approach, actually.
Yeah.
Anybody have any opinions on that? I mean, I like it.
The problem with that is, so an attacker that would want to get a lot of votes could tweak his delegate according to those criteria most shareholders like.
Well, but is that necessarily a problem as long as they are doing what they're supposed to do, and there are alternatives, and there might be a trigger event where if this delegate stops doing what they said they were going to do, you have alternatives or alternates that are set up.
Yeah, the thing is, a bad actor could mess with the system for a while until it takes a while for shareholders to recognize it and to not vote for him and vote for enough other delegates, so he gets voted out. It takes a while, and also he could do, if he has really a lot of stake and, for example, set up a few different delegates, of which shareholders do not know that they are operated by the same person, and this person behind the delegates would have accumulated more than 51% of the votes this way, then he could perform a 51% attack one time, or like until shareholders recognize it and unvote him through voting for enough other delegates.
So not to interrupt you, are you essentially saying that simplifying it too much makes it so, and automating it, or to a very real degree, actually creates a circumstance where there aren't going to be too many people really policing it to notice whenever something happens that's against the network's best interest? So the network might not be able to recover fast enough.
I didn't get completely what you said.
Essentially, what I'm gathering you're saying is it would make it easy if, under what the solution that Phoenix is offering, it would be easy for somebody to go out and look at what the attributes that seem to be the most wanted and by the majority of the community, mirror those attributes and gain a large percentage of the votes.
Yes.
Now, wouldn't other competing delegates have this incentive to do similar things, though? Wouldn't there be a large pool? Like, if you look at kind of like the bell curve, wouldn't you see like a large pool that would be essentially accommodating those attributes, delegate attributes, that would be considered the most pleasant or beneficial by the that's the main consensus.
Yes. Yeah. So Phoenix suggestion just institutionalizes what is in the back happening anyway. Probably that's right. Yes.
Oh, I would say, well, it doesn't have to be automated on the voters' side. It could just be you just have, so at least there's just a list of criteria that they can kind of look and maybe just choose from, and still have to manually pick those people. But at least there's just more information out there that people can kind of get an idea of what each delegate is about. What happened if you go one by one. You can start seeing criteria. Okay, like the delegates I like are probably, okay, I'm all 50% charity, so I'm just going to be able to focus on the ones that are 50% charity, and then I can make my selection from there. So it kind of cuts down my list, but still gives me the information that's important to me, versus have to like do it one by one for everybody.
And you would essentially be able to see, like, I as a user, I can go in and I can say, I'm really interested in focusing on, and I like where you're going with this. Like, I've really found it interesting, like, for instance, maybe the Lotto deck, there might be a delegate that is going to give 10% of their transaction fees to the charity deck that's going to be popped out by Invictus at some point in time. So I might go on there and say, wow, I really want to see, I just want to see the delegates that are focusing on giving to the charity deck or to an insurance deck or whatever you want to call it, and then I can go look at those. I can see who's like what number of what percentage of the shares they have, or the delegated duty they have, and I can choose to either be part of, I can look at it and say, oh, there's 49% of the network has chosen this delegate. I don't want to choose this delegate. I'm going to go choose another one. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Oh, close. I'm just saying. I'm trying to figure out a way to quickly filter out delegates that probably lean towards what I want to do, versus having to go through this entire list and do a one by one research of everybody. Right now, there's no clear-cut way to really see what delegate's for without actually going through each delegate and seeing what they're for. If there's a way for a delegate to communicate a lot more information about what they're doing efficiently, then it makes it a lot quicker and easier for people to make decisions, and then go down the list, versus having to kind of, again, like I could say, or you go the way we want to do now, is just trusting somebody else to do all that diligence, which, like I say, that's okay. But it's just a matter of quantitative, just a matter of how many people, because as we get more and more delegates in there, yeah, there's going to be a top 101, but it might be 1,000, it might be 10,000 potential delegates. And how do you narrow down that field to get to the ones who are closely represent what you want without having to go down and do, like you say, research one by one by one? There's got to be a way for a delegate to just communicate what they're for quickly, or a way you could filter down the delegates that are most important to you, and then, pick the ones out of that one, then do your diligence on those particular ones that have to go through everybody just to find out what they're about.
Sure.
Yeah. I would like the approach if it also includes parameters that show how trustworthy you are, because if they're just parameters that are like uptime or like uptime, or what is your pay rate? What apart from the pay rate are you spending the transaction fees on? If apart from that there are also parameters like how long have you been on the forum, how long have you been a forum member before you became a delegate, how many forum posts do you have, is your real world identity known, and all that. That could be that could show how trustworthy you are, or could be an indicator how trustworthy you are. I think it's a good approach, yeah. Because if they are just technical parameters, the problem is that it leaks, or it has the disadvantage that you don't know how trustworthy those people really are, and this then could better be judged by a person that recommends a slate, like Bytemaster suggested. But if there are parameters like I said, like the is your real world identity known and such, then trustworthiness could also be analyzed this way.
In what way? In what way is it actually more optimal than the system that Bytemaster proposed? Because all you're saying now is create a list to create a filter. And in actuality, you're doing the exact same thing. You're using someone else to decide your vote. And the list is, how is this list collected or put together? You are trusting someone to make that list. So unless the filter is made inside the client and that it's based actually on an analysis of the network or behavior that the client itself is seeing, then I don't see how this list would actually be better than the system Bytemaster is proposing.
Yeah, the difference is that such a list, it has to be based on empirical parameters. So parameters that can be measured, and so it does not depend on trusting one person to have made the due diligence and not have made any backdoor.
But you still need deals. But you still need a list, and you're trusting someone to make that list. So it's the same. Now we're trusting Bytemaster because he presumably he has the tools to analyze the network and see what's going on, and talking to people and having direct contact. And I agree that it should not be a single person, but we need the tools to objectively analyze the network, and everybody needs to be able to cross-check the information and not just make a list on some third-party trusted person and then trust that list.
That just like I think a lot of you guys, we have a lot of problems in this world that we need to fix, and we actually have the power to potentially do it now. And that's an amazing thing, an extremely empowering thing, and a breath of fresh air. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a great responsibility either. So let's keep engaging in these conversations, and I'm going to try to get a hold of Agent 86. It's important that he doesn't feel like he's monopolizing. We all need to be able to really, if we're passionate about something, that's to me something that if somebody's extremely passionate about it, that's something that we need to focus on a little bit.
Because they're passionate. All of it. Yep, we got to find out what all of it is and track all of it. Get everyone everything they need.
Also, and I also like that there are people with different opinions. If we only have a large army of yes marbles, then it will be very interesting.
Yeah, the more diversity, the better. You've got to cover all your bases.
Well, I'll say this, guys. I'm working with Jabba behind the scenes on something that I'm going to be working with as far as the website. Have you guys had a chance to see the Beyond Bitcoin X site yet?
Yeah, I just noticed that the live stream for this server is working as well.
Yeah, it is. It's actually up and running. Jabba is interested in. He wanted me to post something, and I'm going to post it on the forums at some point in time. Not quite yet. I wanted to use this opportunity to run it by some of the people who are closest to me that I talk to on a regular basis. I'm trying to create an incentive structure to essentially, the way I see it currently, we have a lot of people who are on different forums who are doing things like we are doing. They're not getting paid for it. They're teaching other individuals about cryptocurrency, about they're playing an education role, and they're not being paid for it. And I think that those people are prime candidates for essentially providing updates with those communities. And actually, there might be a way for us to essentially promote developers within those communities to create BitShares DACs and provide snapshots to their communities and AGS BTS, like I said before, and then also advertise delegates that they believe in and enable people to actually access the delegates from there. I don't know how that might work with Canonizer. I'm really interested in Canonizer, and it would be nice to make this page this website so it provides an incentive for the delegates to pay for it to continue running, and for the people who are providing the educational content, the DAC development, and the delegate services, providing them all incentives to work together. But I don't know necessarily. The most important thing here is changing the world for the better. So if you guys have any ideas, or you think that there might be potential issues with how the website's going to be set up, please let me know. I'll actually give you a general rundown of what I'm thinking in a text. If you guys want it, just PM me and I'll send it to you, and we can think about this stuff. I'm looking for website founders as we speak. So people who want to come up and, help create the tools and help come to actually help formulate some of the solutions. I think we might be able to bring DPOS to a broader altcoin community. And the altcoin communities, as I see it right now, the biggest problem they have is there aren't many services that accept their coins. So BitShares-based DACs provide a really wonderful mechanism for them to create value within their own ecosystems. So if we can open all these altcoins up to the potential of this, we can really have a beautiful decentralized economy and have these different altcoins almost act as different countries in a way, offering multiple services that are similar to each other and competing. Which is what we all want, right?
Right.
And
I have a question then. As I said, I've been away for a while. So when I left, or when I got too busy to pay any attention to this anymore, the prediction mark and all that stuff like that wasn't even implemented yet. So is that stuff working now? Is BitUSD or user market-generated content available? So is the exchange part working?
No, it's not yet. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Bytemaster was saying that it's coming. He's planning on doing that stuff within the next month or two. It's not like it's something that he wants to really work on making sure it's right. It's done right. I don't think it's going to be like within a couple weeks or anything.
That's my understanding.
Okay, but in that case, you can talk to people, try to to raise enthusiasm for it, but we can't really talk about solutions yet because we don't know, we don't yet have a system to exchange the altcoins and stuff like that. That's one part of your question, if I got it right.
Well, I'll tell you how I was originally envisioning it, and I'll tell you that this conversation today has made me think a little bit about the potential of, maybe using Canonizer in some ways, but initially the website was going to have it so you could go on and be a moderator and create your own community. So I say I'm a member of the Feathercoin community, and I really like the developers. I think that they have the philosophy that I believe in, and I really like what they're doing, and I would like to open their minds to the potential of creating DAX and making a profitable ecosystem that will infuse Feathercoin with a much higher value. I can actually form a team of people that I see on the forums helping people all the time, creating content, and I can say, hey guys, I'm moderating this sub page. We need, to find a couple, like a developer who wants to create a DAC for Feathercoin, do a snapshot, AGS, PTS, and then Feathercoin, and we'll distribute it to the Feathercoin holders, AGS and PTS holders, and then you guys will provide the educational content, set up things on the Mumble for, kind of like what we're doing, post material for users who are part of the community to actually go and look at it, see updates from us, and we can actually tell you some of the delegates that we think are good delegates who are actually helping and supporting our efforts to inform the public. I don't know if there's any potential issues with that. I don't know if I'm going to have to rethink a couple things I'm thinking right now, and sorry, Jabba. But I would like you guys to give your input. The website's here, and I'm wanting to provide the service, and it doesn't necessarily have to make money. But I would love to, capture something like for charity, and provide these ecosystems a means of actually, yeah.
Well, if there is a way, just like the title says, beyond Bitcoin. So if you're not stuck to Bitcoin, it might be that a lot of other coins and communities are interested in joining a central hub where Bitcoin talk is used for it now, but Bitcoin talk is mostly for Bitcoin itself. So it might be a nice place to.
Well, the way Jabba has it. Well, yeah, and that's actually kind of the way Jabba and I talked to Jabba about my original plans, what I was thinking. Each page has a sub forum. Whenever you provide, an article under your sub forum that you're moderating, or one of the members of your team provides an article, they add tags to it and everything, and it actually gets populated into the main feed whenever that happens. People can vote on it, and you can actually go through and search through articles based on relevance and popularity and so on and so forth. And actually, you can really dig deep into what a community's doing, some of the cool things that they're doing with the BitShares technology. And the big thing, the real way that I was thinking we could monetize it and create a self-sustaining structure would be telling the delegates, telling the people who are moderating it, you have these spots where you can actually put down, advertise delegates or DACs, a DAC, and then their delegates the delegates that you guys believe in and that you guys trust, and people don't have to click on it, but they can see where your reasoning is, the content that you've created. And if they agree with you, they can click on it, choose that delegate, and the delegate, if they end up getting the position, they're going to end up. It's recommended that they would donate 5% of their transaction fees back to the websites, the people who are running the website, creating the tools for the website, and then also have 5% to 10% that goes to the actual people who are creating the material in that sub thread. and they could actually give it out as they wish or keep it if they want.
You mean using something like Canonizer to you're proposing to set up a delegate to support the Beyond Bitcoin system.
Well, what I was proposing is that all these different sub-pages, a sub-page for Black Coin and Feather Coin, and all these different coins, they end up having DACs. They need delegates to be run for them, and the moderator and their team are the people who are educated in the community. That gains them a sense of trust from their community because they've already been doing it from the very beginning without without asking for payment. And those people come to this site. They actually continue doing what they're doing essentially there. There's a sub forum there, and it provides an incentive for users to go there to educate themselves, and the trust level becomes a very key instrument by which people can judge whether they're going to choose the delegates. Delegates would want to be there because the people who've helped those communities command trust. The users are going to go there and they're going to trust that if the moderator's team chose a certain delegate, like kind of how Bytemaster was saying it, they could click on it and they could have those people vote for them too.
So say something like Canonizer. Canonizer can be used then by the people on the visiting the network. And you can say all profits are just listed, and then via something like Canonizer, you distribute the profits to the people or the content or the services that the visitors on the site like, something like that.
Yeah, Canonizer, what everyone wants, the expert consensus wants, makes the decisions.
You see, and that would be very interesting. I would be very interested to hear potential solutions and ways that we could integrate a service like that, because I've really spent a lot of time on those forums watching people doing really awesome stuff for each other and not getting paid for it. And I think there might be a way of actually, saying, hey, these people who've been doing all this, you guys have this role and you could actually get paid for it through the delegates.
If you can, if the delegate is not in charge of its own profits, so if a site like Beyond Bitcoin has a delegate, but it does not itself decide where the profits go, but that the visitors of the site or the members of the Beyond Bitcoin community decide where the profits go via a trustworthy system, that might be also it might be something to work towards. And
yeah,
the
delegated expert consensus makes the decisions.
Yeah, and that was kind of an interesting thing. Maybe that's a very interesting way of doing it. I guess then you could essentially just, instead of having communities, you could have camps then? Would that be how it would work? Like, have you guys checked out the link?
No, I need some real time that I can focus on looking into Canonizer. But I'm just this is just pie in the sky things to work things out. So one of the big problems now is that because the delegates are also in charge of the money they create or they raise. That's a point of distrust. So if the delegate is not in charge of its own money but gets paid by a community,
I see.
And that Canonizer is used to decide where the money goes. So if a delegate can say, so it costs me so much to run the service, and this is the cost I'm making. So how much does the community think I should be paid as a salary? That might be possible via an information site linked to Canonizer, like Beyond Bitcoin, and that could maybe work for multiple systems or DACs or even things outside of BitShares.
Yep.
You see,
so creating a hub of distributed employers.
This sounds like a good idea. Continue. Sorry, Brent. Go ahead.
Yeah, you find out what everyone wants, and then the employers and the money goes to whoever's accomplishing that to get it all for everyone.
Does that make sense to you too, Jabba? Or are you confused in any way? Because, I mean, I'm not asking you to move on it or anything. I'm just trying to make sure that we're kind of coming to an agreement on what the problems, the common problems are, and what we can do about it.
This is not something like setting up a website. This is more complex than that. I really like what Jabba did with the network, by the way. So I haven't talked to him yet. I really like how what he did with the Mumble stuff.
Yeah, he did a really good. I agree with you, Jabba. I'm thinking that there would have to be like plugins or something from Canonizer or something that could be more easily used as like a data feed that would actually go into the website or something to that effect.
The only thing the website should need to do in that case is be a portal to the other complex services. So the website itself should not be the one to do all this. It should just connect to the system that will in the background, like Canonizer, systems like that.
Well, we actually have subforums under each on each thread. Would you say that like maybe connecting that instead of like using the Canonizer forums? Only they're here.
I still need to look into Canonizer. I don't know. The thing, what I was under the impression that we did not yet have a reliable voting system and a reliable reputation tracker. So that Canonizer even exists is completely new to me. So I was even those are one of the things I was expecting in the future to be implemented in the BitShares toolkits as a tag. Those were the things I was interested in. And even building up upon that, so that you could have marketplaces and you can track reliability of customers and merchants and stuff like that.
Well, Joey, the future is now, buddy.
Yeah, so, apparently it's closer than I was thinking. That was still a couple of years off, but it's moving faster than I thought. But for the website, for now, I really would like to talk to Jabba some more. What's possible with because he did some things with the Mumble that I didn't know was possible with websites. So it's now very close to what I thought about people being able to interact with the Mumble session without having to install any client. If you can see who is in which channel, and if I set up a couple of these live streams, and if the website allows for choosing which channel you want to listen in on, then people can just listen in on whatever's playing.
Well, I would definitely like to work on this and talk to everybody about it and bring more people in who might be able to create tools or are interested in solving some of these problems. And I'm also interested in, unfortunately, I can't pay you all. I would love to pay you all for all your work, but if we can create a system where people actually use it and they're using it provides such value that the founders and the initial people who've worked on these problems and have gone through the consideration can get paid from the use, like through advertisement revenues for delegates or something to that effect, we might have a winning combo. Something to think about. I'm definitely interested in what you guys have to say, and let's mull it over, and we'll chat about this some more later if you want.
Yeah, I gotta head out pretty soon.
Sounds good. Well, does anybody else have anything to say, or should we go ahead and stop the recording and end the session officially?
Yeah, we were already talking about behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, well, it's it's real interesting.